Let's dive right into this explainer and tackle something pretty incredible: the highly calibrated, almost Goldilocks-style balance of how India actually changes its supreme law. I mean, when you're dealing with a document as massive and complex as the Indian Constitution, you really have to wonder, how on earth does it stay relevant? Well, today we're going to break down the exact mechanisms, the specific math, and the deep philosophy that lets this monumental legal framework evolve without losing its actual soul in the process.
We've got a lot of ground to cover, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The need to adapt. 2. Rules of the game. 3. The simple majority. 4. Special majorities under Article 368. 5. Other crucial majorities. And finally 6. Flaws, flexibility, and success.
Section 1. The need to adapt, finding the perfect balance. Okay, let me ask you a quick question. Would the exact same rules you lived by in the 4th grade still work for you as an adult today? No way, right? It'd be completely suffocating. Well, just like you outgrow childhood rules, a nation outgrows its original laws. A constitution absolutely has to be adaptable. But on the flip side, you definitely don't want a system so loose that the rules can be secretly changed overnight. You need a very careful balance.
It's really fascinating when you look at the extremes out there. Over in the UK, it's incredibly flexible. Their unwritten constitution is basically just a running compilation of laws. Parliament can literally wake up, toss out a centuries-old act, and just pass a new one like it's an ordinary law. Then you swing over to the US Constitution, which is famously rigid. It was built by independent states fiercely protecting their power, so it's notoriously difficult to change. When India looked at this, they didn't pick just one. They designed a combo pack, a true hybrid model.
Moving to Section 2, Rules of the Game, Article 368 and the Basic Structure. Before we get into any of the heavy parliamentary math, we have to talk about the ultimate guardrail. The crucial thing to remember is that Parliament is not supremely powerful. They can never, ever touch the fundamental soul or basic structure of the Constitution. This was cemented in the famous 1973 Keshavananda Bharti case. The Supreme Court basically looked at Parliament and said, look, you have a lot of power, but you didn't write the original document. You can't destroy its foundation. So certain core principles, they're permanently locked in.
Now, if you actually want to get a change rolling, here are the baseline rules. First off, a bill can kick off in either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, and it doesn't even have to be a government minister pushing it. A private member, literally any MP, can introduce it, and you don't need the president's permission beforehand. But here's the real kicker. Thanks to a 1971 update, the 24th Amendment, if both houses do pass the bill, the president can't veto it or send it back. They are legally obligated to sign it.
Section 3. The simple majority, the easiest hurdle.
So let's start with the easiest path. Technically, this falls totally outside the scope of Article 368, and it acts just like the ordinary legislative process. Let's actually game out the math here, because it's super efficient. Let's say only 390 members out of the 543 actually show up in the Lok Sabha that day. A simple majority means you just need more than 50% of the people who are present and actually voting. So out of those 390, you only need 196 votes to pass the bill. If someone's absent or just sitting there abstaining, they don't count towards the math at all.
But keep in mind, you're only using this easy route for the day-to-day administrative updates. We're talking about things like changing a state's borders, figuring out MP salaries, or, bumping up the number of Supreme Court judges from 31 to 34. Those aren't even considered formal constitutional amendments under Article 368. The heavy-duty changes are kept completely separate.
And that brings us to Section 4, Special Majorities under Article 368, the heavy math.
This is where things escalate big time. If you want to mess with something like fundamental rights, a simple majority is absolutely not going to cut it. You have to pass a brutal two-step mathematical test. Step 1. You need the absolute approval of more than 50% of the total membership of the House. In the Lok Sabha, that means hitting at least 272 yes votes, period. It doesn't matter who is sick, who is traveling, or who is protesting. You need 272. Step 2. Simultaneously, you also need more than 2/3 of the members who are present and voting to say yes. You have to clear both of those bars at the exact same time.
Think about how wild this scenario is. Imagine you manage to rally a massive 2/3 majority of the 390 people in the room. That gets you 260 votes. But guess what? The bill still fails. Why? Because 260 falls short of that absolute 272 baseline we just talked about. You could have a room full of people aggressively nodding yes, but because the overall attendance was just a little low that day, the amendment gets entirely blocked. It's literally designed to protect the Constitution from a temporary majority just pushing things through on a whim. And then, if you're trying to change the federal structure itself, things like the president's election or the GST Council, welcome to the ultimate boss level. You need everything we just went over, plus ratification from at least 15 of India's 28 states. The states get a huge say here. Once Parliament passes it, the bill travels to all 28 state legislatures, and more than half of them have to pass it with a simple majority before it even has a chance of becoming law.
Section 5. Other crucial majorities. Exceptions to the rule.
Now, while we're crunching the numbers, there are a few other rare major majorities tucked away in the Constitution that you absolutely should know about. These aren't technically Article 368 amendments, but they are some of the most dramatic moves Parliament can pull off. Just look at Article 61, the impeachment of the president. To remove the head of state, you need 2/3 of the total strength of both houses, not just who is present, total strength. That means 362 votes in the Lok Sabha. That is an insanely high bar. There's also the effective majority, used to remove the vice president or speaker, and Article 249, which lets the Senate temporarily make laws on state matters if the Rajya Sabha agrees it's in the national interest.
Section 6. Flaws, flexibility, and success.
So we've seen the mechanics, but how does this combo pack actually hold up in the real world? Well, critics rightly point out a few glaring flaws. For starters, unlike the US, Indian states have virtually zero power to actually initiate an amendment. They just have to wait for the center. And when a bill does go to the states for ratification, there's literally no time limit. They can just sit on it forever. Plus, if the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha deadlock on an amendment, it's just dead in the water. There's no joint sitting to hash it out. Because of these gaps, the Supreme Court ends up having to step in quite a bit to interpret the vague gray areas.
But the architects of this whole system saw these criticisms coming. Jawaharlal Nehru argued beautifully that a nation is an organic, living thing. You simply cannot make its laws permanently rigid. If you choke a nation's growth with impossible-to-pass constitutional rules, the whole legal framework is eventually going to shatter under the pressure of modern reality.
Dr. B.R. Ambedkar hit the nail on the head as well. He confirmed that they intentionally avoided the kind of paralyzing rigidity you see in places like the US or Australia. They didn't want to lock future generations in a box, but they also couldn't leave the Constitution completely vulnerable to a ruling party's temporary whims, so they created what he called a facile, or manageable, procedure. It filters out the frivolous changes, but still allows for genuine evolution. And frankly, constitutional scholars around the world view this as a remarkably successful model.
So here's what I want to leave you with today. When you look at this incredibly intricate mathematical balance, does it make the Constitution too tough to adapt? We've seen how brutally hard it is to get those 272 votes plus the 2/3 present, right? And we know states are kind of left out of the initiation process. Yet, despite all of that, it's been amended over 100 times, adapting to a world that's changing faster than ever. Does this complex machinery perfectly protect the democratic soul of the nation, or is it a bottleneck for progress? It's something to really think about the next time you hear about a new law being passed. Keep questioning how our ultimate rules are shaped. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.